morning, Martha. Hello, Serena. Too far away, my eyeballs don't let me see. Just scooch closer. Seems very dark today. Adjusting my lights. That's better. Hi, Gloria. Good morning, Mom. We don't need anything today, just ourselves, so just a mat. Just gonna wait a few more minutes for some folks to log on. I'm very warm this morning. I've got my window open. I'm gonna try leaving the door open and see what happens. Normally I shut it to keep my dogs and cat out, but I need the cross breeze this morning, so I might end up with a dog on my mat, who knows. We're going to start with a drawing of a card, so I'm going to shuffle those while we wait for anybody else who might be joining us this morning. And I'm also going to talk about some gardening stuff, and we're going to focus on changing up our routine some. Good morning, Ashley. Thanks for joining in. A public notice too while I shuffle, a reminder that I'm looking for anybody who's interested in the Bass River, Portapique area in some yoga sessions, like the Revive series that I offered in Knoll. So also going to try to offer it in Bass River if you're interested. The Revive series is just 3 evenings from 6 until 7 p.m. and it's focused on an introduction to meditation for the first little bit, and then a real gentle warm-up, and then restorative poses. So restorative poses are held for long periods of time so you can really sink in. So I'd like to get an idea early this upcoming week if Bass River's a go, because if it isn't, I think my Knoll crew might be interested in some more classes. So completely okay if it doesn't fit with my Bass River folks right now, but if anybody is interested and wants to reach out and let me know, that would be fantastic. Have anything else? If you're interested in being interviewed for my Student Speaks series, that would be great too. And again, that's just you and I, privately recorded. And we just talk about sort of your yoga experience, and the whole goal there is to show people who might not, they might be nervous about yoga, and it's just to show them that it's nothing really to be nervous about. So I would love to get some more people in for that, so if you're interested, please reach out and let me know. So today's session, I planned something a little bit different. I was trying to write it down on paper last night, and my cat just kept nuzzling my hand, and then he laid on top of my notepad, but I wrote it down later. So for today's session, we're going to focus on a change of routine, and I think change of routine is important. There's a sense of comfort in routine for sure. Things can be really comforting if you do them the same way all the time, but the fear or sort of the thing that could go wrong with doing things the same all the time is that you fall into sort of autopilot. You know what to expect, you know what happens next, so you're not really being as mindful about the things that you're doing because you know exactly what's going to happen. For example, if you sit in the same spot all the time, if you go to yoga class and put your mat in the same place all the time, if you have the exact same thing for breakfast every morning. So those are just some examples of how things can sort of get stuck in routine and sort of become autopilot. So part of today's class, this morning's class, is that good morning Jeff, thanks for joining in, it's great to see you. Part of this morning's class is that we're going to break up our routine a little bit. So we're actually going to do things out of sequence. We're not going to start with a gentle warm-up. We're actually going to start in corpse pose. What? So hopefully you stay awake through corpse pose and stay with us for the rest of the class. So this tactic came from my mindful book that I really enjoy. 60-second different things you can do to be more mindful. And it talked about switching up some aspect of your routine. So it sounds super silly, but I used to get dressed in the morning in the same way all the time. I would lay my clothes out in the bathroom and I would put on the same things in the same order. So the first thing that I did was different for routine is I got dressed in a different way. What? I know, that doesn't sound that crazy, but it was a pretty big deal. And I just kept kind of trying to do things in a different way. I would also always have peanut butter toast for breakfast with yogurt, always, because it was easy. But now I create like masterpiece breakfasts that are really pretty, or I at least mix it up. And also, excuse me, this summer, I decided to break out of routine by having different blizzards at Dairy Queen, because I am an Oreo blizzard kind of girl all the time. I know they have a whole bunch of different ice creams. I have never, in all of my years until this year, experienced a different blizzard than an Oreo blizzard. And there's some out there that are not so bad. There's some that I didn't like, but I don't know. I just encourage you to break out of routine a little bit. And I also want to talk about my vegetable garden, and I want to connect it to life a little bit. So my vegetable garden is pretty big, kind of excessive, but I love it. And I love planting things and I love growing things. I don't love weeding it so much, but I started to enjoy weeding it a little bit more this year. And right now it is so beautiful and healthy, it looks like a piece of art and brings me excessive joy. But my garden hasn't always brought me joy. And it hasn't always brought me joy because normally the soil's really crappy. If there's a weed in it called horsetail weed, and it's the devil. It also wasn't the most nutrient-rich soil for many years. It wasn't fantastic. So that garden is like 8 years old, and this is the first year from the time that we put it in that I actually added manure to it, and I put lime on it, and I paid somebody to come till it. And all of these things make a lot of sense, but I never made time for them before. I would always not get my garden in until it was full of weeds, so that I dreaded weeding it and dealing with that. And then I would till it with my own machine or by hand, and it was exhausting, and it's a labor of love for sure. But it's not really, it shouldn't be shocking to me, I guess, that this year, when I fertilized, I added lime to it. One of my neighbors, Peter Hodge, has absolutely stunning weed-free gardens. So I went to him early on. I was like, I need you to come look at my garden and I need you to tell me what to do to make it better. And he came up and told me sort of what to put in it. I did a soil test and he tilled it with his machine. I added like 15, 20 bags of lime or something to it. I got truckloads of manure from the Prescotts down the road and shoveled it in. So I gave it lots of TLC, and my garden this year is so much more healthy and happy than usual. And because I have been home more often than usual, I weed it all the time. So every day I do a chicken tour and a garden tour. So I started taking my hoe with me. Also, side note, I never used a hoe before until the last couple of years. I only used a hoe to make rows. I never used it for weeds. I always did it on my knees. So I learned a whole lot. So every day I would do my garden tour with my hoe, and I would get them when they were tiny, before they went to seed, before they got great big. And I also set up a sprinkler, a hose line to help them germinate. So my garden was big and beautiful. Why does this matter? Because if you tend the things that you love and you give them consistent TLC and maintenance, things will be so much more enjoyable. So if you think about your life, there's probably areas of things that you enjoy doing, but they get big and overwhelming because you sort of let them get away from you. But if you give them that consistent TLC, find out what they need, maybe get some expert advice about how to look after it or what you should be doing, things can get so much better. So that's why I think my garden is important, and the joy that it brings me now, like I really feel if my garden could talk, it would like cry with joy and be like, see what I'm capable of? And a side note, if anybody needs lettuce, I've got lots. So that's why I wanted you to tell you about my garden. And also, I read this book, Reader's Digest, Vegetable Gardening, From Planning to Picking, How to Create a Bountiful Garden. I always used it for spacing information, and it has really nice pictures, which is probably part of why I'm interested. But I read it this year from front to back, and I learned so many things, like the hoe that I bought. It's a Dutch hoe, it's amazing. but more about what plants need and how to do companion planting, which I understood but never really bothered to do, and also how to mix up my plants in the garden so they share different nutrients. In short, I'm super happy with my garden, and you should take time for the things that you love, to give them that TLC initially, and to give things ongoing care and focus so that they don't get super overwhelming. That's what I wanted to tell you about gardening. Let's draw a card from my brand new deck and see what it says for us this morning. So this is Wisdom of the Oracle. Here's our guidebook. Here's what the cards look like. And we're gonna draw one and see what we need to know this morning. So again, Oracle cards, I just sort of draw. I'm so happy that didn't knock over my cheek. Oracle cards I use whenever I need a little bit of wisdom or some input from something that is not myself, so something outside of myself to guide me a little bit. And sometimes I ask a specific question. You can also do a 3-card spread and do like what's influenced you in the past, what are you influenced by right now, and what's coming up in the future. But for us, I'm just going to draw a card and see what it says. And I'm excited because I haven't used these a whole bunch. So let's see. I'm feeling this one this morning. Ooh, serendipity, which is a fun word. I will show you it. Looks like a clover and a fairy. Cool. Card number 18. All right. So serendipity, opportunity, aligned with readiness, the awareness of synchronicity, luck, and good fortune appearing as signs and symbols, a magical alignment of events. So that's kind of like the definition of the card, I would assume. The message from this card: you've stepped into alignment with the greater good where your dreams and the collective dreams resonate in exquisite, there are some big words in this morning, harmony. Now is the time for luck and being ready to meet and create miracles that you could never have planned all by yourself. Keep in mind that you are a channel right now. As the higher energy use, you are a force on behalf of the whole world. Your fortune becomes everyone's fortune. Everything you bring into being now will leave a wondrous legacy for others in the future. Your service to the world is being supported at this time. Expect the unexpected and smile, for spirits love you very much. The relationship message with this card is Spirit has a plan, and the plan is to place you in front of the right person at the right time. You have met or are about to meet somebody vitally important to your life's journey. Someone that Spirit wants you to bring into your life. Only divine forces can plan this meeting. It's out of your hands. Pay attention to different signs. You are in the right place at the right time. Be grateful, for stars are aligning in your favor and fortune is smiling on you. Victory and success are yours. The choices you have made in the past have prepared you for the opportunities before you now. This is your lucky moment and timing is perfect. The protection message, it says, perhaps you felt almost certain that serendipitous events were meant to lead to something better. It was supposed to be the perfect business, or that person you gave your heart to was supposed to be the one, yet it all fell apart. Consider this. Sometimes synchronicity and serendipity come together to lead you directly into difficulties in order to give you a difficult message, an important lesson that you need to learn before you hit the jackpot. Don't get caught up in the drama of disappointment. There really is a silver lining in this cloud. Spirit always knows what you need, and this is guiding you to where you're meant to go. Pay attention to the signs presented to you. So that's kind of a fun one. Basically sort of saying that when bad things happen, they're not always, well, they might be bad things, but that they could also be getting you ready for something different. So that's a nice thought to think of. So as mentioned, we're mixing things up today, folks, and we're actually starting in corpse pose. So my apologies of those to you who dislike starting on your back right away, because you might have a tight back and that might be uncomfortable. So corpse pose is typically done stretched out on our back. However, if you have a tight back, you might want to keep your feet closer to your bum instead, or prop a block or a bolster under your hips. So again, if your back runs tight, maybe keep your feet closer to your bum instead, and that allows for that space in your lower back. If you're feeling okay, you can stretch out long. So again, we're doing things a little bit backwards. We're mixing up our routine. So we're going to start in corpse pose for a little bit. And I have things sort of planned slower, lower, so we can sit and sort of feel the pose a little bit. And that's our plan. So let's get started with corpse pose. Stretched out long. Hands could go palm up or palm down. And your only job in corpse pose is to breathe and relax. And maybe still sort of arrive on the mat. So if things pop into your mind, recognize what they are, but try to just allow them to pass. Nice, beautiful, calming start, hopefully slowing down your heart rate, letting yourself arrive. Moving into banana pose next. I'm going to slide my hips to the right-hand side of the mat. I'm going to take my feet to the left corner of the mat. I'm going to take my arms up overhead if that feels okay, and they're also going to swing to the left. So my feet are towards the left corner, my hands are up overhead, arced to the left. Maybe I'll hold on to my right wrist to help sort of arc it over. I could also take my right foot and cross it over top of my left if I wanted to. If it feels like too much, so right now I feel too much of a strain in my right hip, I'm going to take it from the left corner just a little bit more to the center, so a more subtle banana pose. So you're kind of arcing or making a C shape to the left. If your shoulders run tight, and they don't comfortably rest on the floor, you don't want to sort of arc them and hold them up. So you can either tuck a pillow or something under your hands, or if you don't have that, you can always just do it with your lower body instead, and just sort of move your shoulders to the left and let your hands rest instead. And then come back to your breathing, keeping your chin gently tucked towards your chest. You don't want it to reach up towards the ceiling because that will pinch the back of your neck. So gently tucked, and then come back to your breath. one last big breath in, really extending those hands up, stretching those feet away, active stretch for a breath. And then bringing your hips back to the center, straightening up your body, and then doing the same thing but to the other side. So my hips are moving to the left, feet are headed more down towards the right. I was holding my wrist. I'm going to switch my hold so that I can arc my hands to the right corner of my mat. I'm going to cross my feet on the right corner of the mat. My hips are to the left, so I'm in a gentle C shape, but to the other side. And again, you always have my permission to do what works for you instead. Scan your body, build that body awareness, recognize what feels good, and if it's not feeling good and you're breathing shallow or you're holding your breath, just ease off the pose a little bit until it does feel right for your body. Every body is different. As you breathe and hold, remember to try to body scan, check out how you're feeling in the pose, and soften areas that don't need to hold tension. So for example, I can feel my glutes squeeze together initially and sort of pressing my thighs together and tense. So I need to breathe into those areas to help them relax. Settling back in, coming back to your breath. Last couple breaths here, so same thing, maybe stretching those arms out a little bit further, stretching those feet away. Active stretch for a breath, maybe sighing out your exhale. And then straightening back up to the center of your mat. If your arms are up overhead, bringing them down and slowly adjusting. Remember, anytime that we hold long poses, there's a chance that we're blocking off our blood flow. So when we do move, it sort of sends that blood and that energy throughout our body again. But gentle, slow movements is ideal. Moving into reclined bound angle or reclined goddess, the soles of our feet are going to come together. Our knees are going out wide either side. Your feet can be as close to your bum, which intensifies the stretch through your hips a little bit, or you can slide them down away from your bum until you get to a spot that feels good. You always have the options, if you have blocks or pillows at home, to block up underneath your knees if you like. Soles of the feet coming together, stretching out those inner hips. If this isn't accessible for you, you can just keep sliding your feet away from yourself, and if feet don't come to touch, you could go flat-footed on the floor instead and just slightly open up your knees. So soles of the feet don't necessarily need to touch. Finding a spot that works for you, that's feeling okay this morning. Sometimes I like to do both hands on my belly. Sometimes I like to do hand on my heart, hand on my belly. Or sometimes I like cactus arms to add in a bit of a chest opener as well. So finding what you're craving this morning and then settle in and come back to your breath. One last deep belly breath in, pulling that air all the way into the bottom of your belly. Exhaling back out. And then perhaps using your hands to guide your knees up and closed, drawing your knees in towards your chest for a gentle squeeze, perhaps rocking from side to side, maybe drawing some small circles with your knees. First one direction, then the other. Maybe hanging out right here for a bit longer, or perhaps doing fake legs up the wall by extending the soles of your feet up towards the ceiling. Legs can stay straight, or they can slightly bend to sort of just center that weight over top of your belly a little bit more, a little bit easier to hold. Hands can stay down or hold the legs. Or happy baby if you prefer, by bending those knees in further, taking them out a little bit wider and squeezing them back in towards your body. Happy babies, I guess, kick and play if you're craving a little bit of movement. Or if you can comfortably reach for big toe with pointer and middle finger, you could wrap those around or hold on to the outsides of your feet. So any of those options for a few breaths. Legs above our body sort of re-energizes things. Sort of adjusts our hips and our lower back in a nice way, because it's rare that we're completely off of our feet. One more big breath in. And then if your feet are up above yourself, it can be kind of nice, if you don't have any back issues, to slightly bend your knees, bring your feet down a little bit, and then with a big inhale, on your exhale, you just let your feet drop, like sort of slam them down kind of heavy. It does jar your body, but it can feel kind of nice on your legs and sort of an unusual sensation. Again, if you have back issues, major hip issues, any spinal disc issues, don't do it. But if you're feeling okay or want to give it a try at your own discretion, big breath in. And with your exhale, you just let your legs drop down to the mat. So again, I don't know, something a little bit different. Maybe rotate your ankles. First one direction, then the other. And then transitioning into spinal twists. So for my spinal twists, I normally move my hips to the right-hand side, bring my knees together and my feet on the right-hand side, and then let my knees drop to the left. Looking for shoulders to have good contact with the mat. My legs can stack on top of each other. No expectation that they touch the ground on the other side. If I'm looking for a little extra weight, my top hand can rest on my leg. If I'm looking for more, I can pull that knee across my body a little bit further, and it doesn't stack on top of the other leg anymore, but it extends beyond. Still looking for more, you can straighten that leg and then bring it across. You can look the opposite direction of your knee or the same direction of your knee. You can also prop blankets or pillows either under your knee or between your knee if you prefer. And again, if you're looking for more, knees come up towards the chest. If it's too tight, slide your knees down and away. All that we're looking for is that gentle twist in the lower back. I like to stretch my opposite arm away from my body. I just find it helps keep me sort of in balance a little bit more. So finding a variation of any of that feels okay. And then body scanning to release any tension that you're holding. If your mind is still wandering, remember we have mantras that we can say, like just breathe in our head. We could count our inhales and our exhales. Any of those things to help focus our mind if you find you're wandering a little bit. sliding your legs back up to the center, readjusting your hips on the mat. Maybe windshield wipering your knees from side to side for a little bit to release any sort of tension that happened in your lower back. And then we're going to do the same thing, but on the other side. So hips moving to the other side of the mat, and then knees drop the other direction. Making all those little adjustments to make it feel right for your body. And then finding some stillness, scanning the body to release tension, and then coming back to our breathing. Bringing those knees back up to center again, perhaps windshield wipering again. And then taking just our right leg, squeezing that knee in towards our chest. Hands can wrap around the shin or the back of the thigh. Maybe rotating that ankle or flexing. Transitioning into figure 4, we're going to take that foot of the leg that we have drawn in across to our opposite knee. Pinky toe down to the heel side is going to come onto the knee, and then we can use our hand to gently press that leg away if we want. I'm going to show you the different angles just in case you're not sure what I'm describing. So we squeezed it in, we took that foot across to our knee, and then we can gently press that knee away. Your variations or options here are to flex your toes back towards your knee to intensify the stretch. We're looking for a stretch down in the right hip. You might also feel a little bit along your IT band from your knee down towards your hip. Or you could take your hands and wrap them in behind the thigh on the opposite leg and then draw that knee up towards you as well. You just want to make sure you're not sort of driving your chin towards the ceiling. Keep it tucked down. Try and keep your shoulders down on the mat if at all possible. And then you can play around with extending that leg up towards the ceiling and bringing it back down if you'd like. Check in with your breathing. Again, if you're breathing shallow or holding your breath, your body is asking for a modification or for you to ease off. Don't let your ego get in the way here and do sort of the furthest version or the one that you'd like to be doing. Do what your body's asking. Last couple breaths. Taking that foot off that knee, straightening back up, maybe squeezing back in towards the chest one more time. Perhaps extending that foot up towards the ceiling, holding in behind the thigh, pulling that leg in towards your torso, keeping it as straight as possible for one more big breath in. Exhale, letting it drop across your body to the left, trying to keep your hips grounded down onto the mat So again, this is just stretching out through the outside of that leg. Coming back up to the center with it, gonna open up to the right. I like to use my arm to sort of catch it, so the back of my forearm is down on the floor, my hand sort of makes a cradle, and my leg ends up in that cradle. So this is stretching through our inner groin. And always for all of these, you push your heel away, toes towards your nose. It intensifies the stretch if that's what you want. One more big breath in. On your exhale, bringing it back up to the center, bending that knee, bringing your knee back down and foot to the floor. A moment for whatever your body needs. And then same thing on the opposite side. So other knees coming in for a squeeze towards our body. Maybe some ankle rotations. And then taking that foot across to the opposite knee, opening it up, maybe flexing toes back towards knee, perhaps pressing knee away, maybe holding in behind the thigh and drawing that other leg in towards yourself and extending up and down towards the ceiling. Last couple of breaths here on this pose. Big breath in. And exhale, unthreading that leg, extending foot up towards the ceiling, maybe holding in behind the thigh or the calf. If you can comfortably reach for big toe, you could run it that way. This is a nice series that it's nice to have a strap or a belt you could put around your foot as well, but we can also do it just using the muscles in our leg or using our hands. So pressing heel up towards the ceiling, toes towards your face a little bit. Again, making sure that that chin is tucked down towards our chest. As soon as it pops up towards the ceiling, you can actually feel that pinch in the back of your neck. We don't want that. So we want head on the floor, chin tucked slightly. And then we're going to take this leg across our body to the right first. Trying to keep our hips and our lower back on the mat. As soon as I let it pop, it's my stabilizers that are working instead, and we want to stretch our legs. So hips stay on the mat, leg crosses. Couple breaths here. Good, bringing it back to the center, opening up to the side. Back up to the center again, bending at the knee, maybe squeezing it in again for a breath. And then foot comes back down to the mat, a moment for your legs, for anything that they might need. And then we're getting ready for bridge pose. So bridge pose, knees are bent, feet are close to our bum, but we want to think of our feet. Talking is hard this morning. We want to think of where our feet are aligned with our body, and we want our feet beneath our knees so that when we push our hips up and bridge, our feet are supporting our knees and are in alignment. If my feet are too close to my bum, when I go up, it's actually just going to strain my knees instead. So again, you want your feet a little further perhaps from your bum than you think. Hands go to either side of your body. And when you're feeling ready, you're going to push down through your heels, push down through your hands, and raise your hips up off the mat. You want to try and draw your knees towards each other, so we don't want them to go wide. We're not trying to make them touch or anything, but by pushing your knees towards each other, you're firing up your glutes, you're firing up your legs. Chin is still tucked to look after our neck. One more. And on our exhale, slow lower back down, vertebrae by vertebrae. back down to the mat. We're going to do that 2 more times at your own pace. So as you please. I normally do it with an exhale. So I inhale on the mat and I exhale, push up. Awesome job. If you want it, I invite you to do it 1 more time, but this time when I push up, I'm going to walk my shoulders towards each other under the mat a little bit more. I'm going to take my hands under my body, and under my body I'm going to interlace my fingers and push down through my pinkies. Doing that is going to open up my shoulders, open up my chest, and also drive my hips a little bit further up. So again, if you'd like to try it, we're starting the same, pushing the hips up, but then walking our shoulders underneath ourselves a little bit more. Maybe if shoulders allow, hands are going to interlace and we're going to push down into the mat, which allows us to push our hips up a little bit higher. And then come back to your breath. Unlacing your hands, bringing your hips back down, transitioning to a side of your choosing to rest there just for a moment. And then using a supportive hand to slowly guide yourself up into a seated position. All right, so we've stretched out our legs quite a bit in a variety of different ways. We're going to move into half butterfly next, so I'm going to extend my left leg out long and tuck my right foot in towards my left leg. I'm going to start by rotating my ankle a little bit so that leg is extended. I like to flex my toes away from myself, which stretches the top of my foot. And I just hold. And then I alternate by pushing my heel away, flexing my toes back towards my body. So this is stretching out our ankle a little bit, but it's also stretching through the top of our foot and the bottom of our foot. Our feet do an awful lot for us. And many times sort of the tendons and parts in the bottom of our foot tighten up and constrict, and that can cause a lot of discomfort when we're walking. So I like to stretch our ankles, our feet out, and I really encourage like massaging the bottom of your foot on top of a ball or something similar, or even a can will stretch out the bottom of your foot too. Relaxing your foot. We're going to sit up nice and tall. We're going to turn our body towards our extended foot. And the reason we're sitting up nice and tall first is so our vertebrae can sort of align, straighten, expand as much as possible. Because we're going to hinge forward, less chance of anything pinching. So again, turning our body towards that extended foot, sitting up nice and tall, and then hinging at the hips forward. You have a couple different options. You can keep from shoulders to hips very straight, imagining that it's like a flat board and just hinging forward but staying very straight. If hips run tight, a slight micro bend in that knee that's extended will give your hips more movement to be able to fold. So if you have any back issues, I would suggest this one. If your back's feeling pretty okay and you're comfortable rounding, you can hinge at the hip further and soften down over top of that extended leg if you prefer. You're not reaching for anything specific. Your hand's just coming to rest somewhere that makes sense. If you can comfortably reach your foot and you'd like a little bit more from this stretch, your left leg is extended. Your left hand can rest inside that left foot or down on the mat. And then your right hand can either come to the hip and open up, or it can stretch up and overhead if you prefer. So that takes the stretch into the leg, but also to the outer hip. So some options for you to play around with, and I'll be quiet so you can relax and breathe. Next, inhale, sitting back up and getting ready to do the same thing but on the opposite side. So other leg is stretching out, foot's tucking in, and starting with that rotation of your ankle and then moving into the flex. So pushing your toes away, heel staying on the mat. And then opposite direction, toes towards your nose, heel presses away, but heel stays in contact with the mat. Foot then relax, sitting up nice and tall, turning towards the extended leg. And again, we can hinge or we can round and soften. Some people like to start with a big breath in and sort of reaching hands up towards the sky, and then exhaling down. Again, option if it feels okay for hand to rest inside or inside the foot, hand on hip, open up the shoulder maybe, or maybe reaching up and overhead. So some options to play around with. Do what feels right for your body, recognizing that one side might feel different than the other. And then coming back to your breath, scanning that body, softening any areas that might feel tight or restricted. Next, inhale, bringing that upper body back up, and we're going to extend both legs long out in front of us. Getting ready for staff pose. Toes are going to go up towards the ceiling, pressing our heels away. So our legs are sort of neutral, almost like we were standing on the floor. Our hands are going to either side of the hips and pressing down gently onto the mat, and then pressing our legs down into the mat. So it's kind of activating our leg muscles, our shoulders are activated, our wrists a little bit, and we're going to breathe here a couple breaths. Beautiful, relaxing a little bit. Going to take our hands a little bit further in behind our body. So if I turn to the side, my hands for staff pose were by my hips. I'm going to move them back just a touch further and then lean back so my shoulders are on top of my hands. Reverse plank if you wanted. Heels are pressing down into the floor. Hands are pressing down into the floor. And then all I'm doing is lifting my hips up off the mat, maybe pointing my toes, big breath in, and then bringing my bum back down. Legs can come in a little bit closer to yourself, coming to our hands for a moment. Rotating both hands and both wrists. First one direction, and then the other. Beautiful job. Taking one wrist and wrapping our hand around it. We're going to do both, so it doesn't matter which one you start with. And just squeezing that wrist. I'm just sort of dancing my fingers down the wrist, applying pressure in different ways. And then taking our thumb to the palm of our hand, just going to run down from our wrist, apply some pressure, and go up towards our fingers. Nice, and then curling those fingers in, wrapping our thumb around. We're going to gently wrap our other hand around and squeeze those fingers down for a breath. Release that fist. Going to take our hand and press our fingers back gently. Big breath in. And exhale, release. Coming to the other wrist, same thing, gently squeezing. Kind of pulsating those fingers around the wrist. coming to the wrist with our thumb and pressing up towards our fingers, squeezing in. Wrapping our fingers down, putting our thumb across our fist, squeezing over top. Big breath in. Exhale, release. And then taking our fingers and gently pressing our fingers back. Coming back to our breath. And exhale, release. Beautiful job. Gonna move into hero's pose or a squat. I will show you both and you can decide what you'd like to do. Can be hard on the knees, so be aware of that. Your first option is to come up onto your knees, and then you can either tuck your toes if you want to stretch out your feet, or you can keep them flat. So I'll give you the option of flat first, and then bring your bum down on top of your heels and hands rest on your thighs. This is stretching out our legs in a different way and the top of our feet, rolling our shoulders back and down, tucking our chin. So this is one option. If this is too much or not feeling okay, come back down into tabletop, tuck your toes, and then walk your hands in towards yourself, and you can get a nice sort of toe and foot stretch. Hold it as long as you like, and then if you'd like. Or you can walk yourself up all the way up into a squat. So a squat, knees are pushing out to either side. We can do it from our tippy toes, and then bring our chest up. Hands can rest in front, or we can tuck them down inside of our legs and use our elbows to press our knees out. You can roll up your mat underneath your heels, which might make it a bit more accessible. Or you can take it a little bit wider and go flat-footed and do the same thing. So wherever you're at, come back to your breath. If you're here or on tippy toes with me, I really like letting my bum hang down and relax. I don't need to engage my leg muscles so much, but that's not really fantastic for your body. Instead, your leg muscles should always be engaged, so you're thinking about, if this is my low point, raising your bum up a little bit and engaging your legs. One more big breath in wherever you're at, and exhale, coming back down to sit. Whatever way you want to sit, knees can be crossed or they can be stretched out long in front. A little bit of seated cat-cow. So pushing our belly and chest forward, looking up towards the ceiling, and then tucking our chin and rounding, pushing belly button towards our spine, and then alternating between the two. So again, you can do this cross-legged. If you prefer legs out in front, if it feels comfortable, you can do it with your legs flat. But I find it gives a little bit more range of motion if you bend your knees and rest on your heels. Then if we think about matching with our breath, we're going to inhale as we scoop forward and exhale as we push and round. Coming back to that neutral spine. Still, legs could be out straight or they could be crossed. We're going to sit up nice and tall, taking our hands to either side, starting with left arm, reaching up and over top of our head, and bring down. Thinking about inhaling as you come up, and exhale as you take it back down. But on the opposite. And again, how far overhead you reach is entirely up to you. Listen to your shoulders, and your gaze could go down on the mat in front. It could stay off to the left, your hand that's grounded on the mat, or it could be following the hand that's doing the moving. Let's do 3 more times. Excellent job. Taking both arms up and overhead, reaching towards the ceiling. Spinal twist, left hand to right knee, other hand goes in behind. We sit up nice and tall. Turn to look over right shoulder. Can still be done with legs out straight. Slight micro bend if you're in your knees if you want, and turning to twist. Maybe on your exhales, twisting a little bit further. Head comes around first, rest of the body follows. Same thing, but on the opposite side. Nice and tall first to elongate that spine, then turn and twist. Head comes back around first, rest of the body follows, and then coming up to our shoulders with a couple of small circles. First one direction, then the other. Shoulders finding some stillness, letting one ear drop towards one shoulder, feeling that nice stretch through the side of our neck. Coming back up to the center, same thing to the opposite side, and just repeating that movement back and forth. Next time the head comes back up to the center, letting our chin drop towards our chest. And then maybe a couple of small circles. Finding some stillness with your neck. Your choice, we could do chin mudra, pointer finger touching thumb or tucked underneath, coming down onto our legs, or maybe you're feeling Anjali mudra, hands come together, rest on chest. Closing our eyes or looking down softly to the mat for a couple breaths. And then taking a moment to think about 2 things that you are grateful for. And in your head, you're going to complete, I am grateful for because. And then if you're not in Anjali Mudra, switching your hands to Anjali Mudra, and thank you so much for joining me on the mat this morning. If it feels okay, echoing Namaste. Beautiful job with our nice reversal of a practice. And revived with your legs stretched out, lower back. Nice little stretch for our hands as well. If you have any questions, comments, concerns at any point, please feel free to send me a message. And I thank you so much for joining me on the mat. I feel like there was something else, but I can't think of what. I don't know, my mind is blank. I hope you have a fantastic day. Oh, this was it. If you so feel drawn to do so, and you have not done it yet, I would greatly appreciate reviews on my Facebook page. Those reviews let other people who haven't practiced yoga or are thinking about giving it a try to see your experience and your positive words and perhaps give it a try. Same thing if you're thinking about maybe doing a yoga interview with me for people to check out, I strongly encourage you to reach out. It lets people see the beautiful diversity of people who practice yoga and why they do it and how yoga has sort of helped them grow or at least stretch and breathe. So again, thank you so much. I hope you have a fantastic Sunday and enjoy the week ahead.